All right, so we're here on the southern side of the Woodland home. You just kind of scroll through the whole little compound here. So you see the Woodland home, there's the outdoor kitchen, and then the little cabin tucked away in the back is Houston's law office. So there you have it, the Woodland home back porch, the law office, and the kitchen. And we'll take a peek inside each of those buildings as well. Welcome to the dog run of Sam and Margaret's Woodland home. The dog run is the name given to this hallway, and traditionally in the summertime, both doors would be left open, like that door right there, to allow for ventilation to go through the middle part of the house and provide air conditioning to the people inside. This is probably the busiest room in the house at one time. You would eat dinner here, talk, visit with guests, children would play, all that good stuff would take place right inside this room. So really the most, or one of the busiest rooms, if not the busiest room in the Houston home. On either side of the dog run, we have two larger rooms. Those rooms are called pens. So we have a pen there, and we have a pen on this side. We've got this pen set up as a parlor. And this is a room where Margaret would do her entertaining, where she would visit with her friends, etc. And this is definitely, I think, more likely to be an adult room than a children's room. And the Houstons would have their nice things out on display here. So we know that of the items that we have in this room today, this couch was in the Houston family. It was not actually a couch that belonged to Sam and Margaret. It belonged to one of Margaret's brothers. It's beautiful 19th century couch. Love it. Odds are good, though, I would have to say that Houston sat in that couch. The marble top table belonged to the Houstons, and the mirror belonged to the Houstons as well. The piano that's here is a Houston granddaughter's piano. And then we have some nice portraits of Houston family members. This is Houston's mother-in-law. This is Nancy Lee, and it's the only known image of her painted in color that we have. One of Margaret's sisters-in-law, excuse me. Here's her brother, Houston, and here is an image of Margaret shortly after she and Sam were married. Now the pen on the other side of the dog run, this is obviously the Houston's bedroom. We have a fantastic poster bed here, 4-post bed, that belonged to a good friend of the Houstons, a fellow by the name of Henderson Yoakum. Cradle, almost all the time, there would have been a child using this cradle when the Houstons lived here. The wardrobe in the back is a wardrobe that belonged to Sam and Margaret. That was made for Margaret in New Orleans. And in the small room here, this is not called a pen, this is called a shed room. In the shed room, we have kind of set up as a small alcove or nook or whatnot. I have visualized, or I believe that this room is a place where food would be prepared, or prepared prior to going to the kitchen, or prepared after it came in from the kitchen prior to being eaten by everybody. Out on the southern porch of the Woodland home, here is the other shed room. Shed room, or a shed room like this, a lot of times you would see called a stranger's room as well. You notice there's not a door that goes from inside this room to inside the rest of the house. It was not uncommon to have people rent out this room or a room like this in their house, their cabin, and they would do that to people traveling by. Essentially, it's like a bed and breakfast, if you will. And this room is a bit of a mystery to me. I try to wonder who stayed in here. The way we have it set up currently is as a mother-in-law's room, or where Nancy Lee would stay when she'd come visit Sam and Margaret, or visit Margaret while Sam was in Washington, D.C. My question is who else would have stayed in this room? And we know that the Houstons had several overseers, several workers on the property that worked here on the farm. And I suspect that in addition to being Nancy Lee's room, this could have been a room that one of those overseers would have stayed in as well. Our visitors often ask, well, how do they get upstairs? You said there's upstairs. Well, here you are. You have a nice, neat little tucked in staircase. The good news is it gets you upstairs. The bad news is it can be kind of steep. So let's take a walk upstairs. Now, just like downstairs, this room right here, in between the two pens, this is also a dog run, and we have notes and stories about Sam Houston taking naps right here in the upstairs dog run. And you can imagine why. It doesn't take much imagination to figure out that the air feels pretty good here. You've got a breeze coming through there, a breeze flowing below you, cools things off rather nicely. Just as in downstairs, we have two pens on either side of the dog run upstairs. This pen is set up as a boys' room. And while we do happen to have a quilt rack in the boys' room, which might strike you as odd, we do have a note from Margaret that talks about she has put her quilt rack upstairs in the boys' room because at that time, the Houstons had more girls than boys, and there was room upstairs to put the quilt rack. On the other side of the dog run, we have the girls' room, and you can get an idea of what the girls' room looks like